beyond the financial bottom line and begin to reflect a more holistic measure of our impact on society. As such, over the past 3 years, we've increasingly adopted a triple bottom line approach to our measurement of corporate performance. These are measurements that relate to our economic, environmental, and social impact. They are by no means comprehensive at this point, but we continue to refine and enhance these in a way that will help explain our broader impact as a business entity and as our own way of keeping score on ourselves. These measurements are recorded and tracked in a group-wide sustainability report. This is currently published in our group every 2 years, but will ultimately move to annual reporting and will be combined with our traditional annual report to stockholders. Our group-wide sustainability reports are prepared along the Global Reporting Initiatives, or GRI, framework. The Global Reporting Initiative is a network-based organization that produces a comprehensive sustainability reporting framework that is widely used around the world. I'm not sure if it was discussed earlier at this conference, but just let me tell you a little bit about it. It is the sole global framework on which companies can base their sustainability and corporate responsibility reports. Long-term, the GRI intends to mainstream the disclosure on environmental, social, and governance performance. It basically sets out performance indicators that organizations can use to measure and report their economic, environmental, and social performance. Organizations can adopt these voluntarily, flexibly, and incrementally, enabling them to be transparent about their performance in key sustainability areas. And this issue of flexibility and incrementally is something that attracted us in the Ayala Group. There are 76 indicators across the economic, environmental, and social performance areas. For 2010, the Ayala Group has covered 30 out of the 76 indicators, which is equivalent to a B-level report across our group. Some examples of these include measurements of our energy consumption, our water use, how we deal with waste management, our carbon emissions, impact mitigation, employment practices, labor relations, human rights practices, product and service responsibility, and social development contributions. This year, we have 8 companies adopting the triple line reporting, and we're moving towards having all our companies in the group report under these measures. What I also find particularly attractive about the sustainability reports under the GRI framework is that in many cases we're judged as companies as having only one focus, profit. And while that is of course a driver that makes the capitalist system work, I like to think that all of us as institutions involved in our economies contribute far more and in more exciting ways to our, national economic and social fabric. And these can only really be seen in a clearer way through these sustainability reports. And that's why we, in the Ayala Group and me personally, have embraced them in a way that begins to enhance the way our companies, are viewed within the economic sphere. To give you a bit more flavor, let me expand briefly on these 3 metrics. In measuring economic results, for example, we measure revenues and net income, of course, in its traditional format, but we also quantify the distributions we make to suppliers and contractors, to employees, to government in the form of taxes, and communities in the form of donations and contributions. We also include capital expenditure across projects. On the environmental front, we measure our carbon footprint as a group. We also measure how much water we consume, how much fuel and electricity we purchase as an entity, and how we manage our waste. On the social impact front, we measure a range of variables that include age and gender composition in the workplace, employee turnover, and health and safety conditions. We also measure how many lives are impacted by the specific products and services that we deliver. By regularly monitoring ourselves across these more progressive metrics, instead of just the financial ones, I believe we can better understand the impact and contributions of our group in a more holistic way. The GRI standard and triple bottom line approach has helped us frame our impact and measure it in ways that we believe encourages sustainability in our business practices. Moving beyond CSR at the corporate level, we're also redefining our metrics in the nonprofit side of our business engagement. At the Ayala Foundation, as an example, we have our own set of metrics that define success, which of course are different to the ones we use on the corporate side. The foundation remains a catalyst and collaborator with our individual companies and their respective CSR initiatives. It has also initiated several multi-sectoral CSR activities devoted to education, poverty alleviation, and cultural development. These activities are significant in scale, and the foundation has been both a convener and an implementer for these intervention programs. At the foundation, a measure of our success is whether or not we are meeting the needs and expectations of our stakeholders. In the Ayala Foundation's case in particular, we have identified our primary stakeholders to be the Ayala Group, vulnerable groups, communities and people in need as an example, the government, donors and partners, other corporate foundations and NGOs that we partner with, and of course the Ayala Foundation employees. For each of these stakeholders, we have both qualitative and quantitative measures to assess whether the Ayala Foundation is meeting the specific expectations and needs of each type of stakeholder. Separately, the foundation also has quantifiable and qualitative measures for the performance of its own independent projects. But these measurements depend significantly on the approach of each intervention program. Some of these are more in-depth intervention programs, in which case the program prioritizes depth over the scale of the project, or whether these are horizontal intervention programs that achieve bigger scale but shallower depth. In-depth intervention programs are those that tend to create a deeper intervention rather than rely on scale. An example of this in our portfolio of initiatives is our CENTEX initiative. CENTEX, which is short for Center of Excellence in the Public Elementary Education, is a public elementary school designated as a laboratory school and managed by the Ayala Foundation in partnership with the Department of Education. It aims to provide highly intelligent but economically disadvantaged children with education whose quality is equal to the best private schools in the country. It has 2 campuses, one in Manila and one in Batangas, but just 2 schools. CENTEX will have a different set of performance evaluation indicators versus a program like our GILAS initiative. GILAS, in turn, another Ayala Foundation project, aims to connect all the public high schools all over the country to the internet. This is a simpler but still strategic objective aimed at covering a greater number of schools instead of drilling down to the quality of education of each student, as CENTEX does. For example, CENTEX will tend to measure the quality of education and the learning achievements of students and test results, while GILAS, which is broader and is a nationwide project, will tend to measure instead the number of schools reached or the number of teachers trained and the number of students gaining access to computers. So 2 very different set of metrics in each of those projects. Both are educational interventions that take a different approach, which require different set of quantitative and qualitative performance indicators. So ultimately, measurement and evaluation hinge on the type of approach or intervention designed for the program's beneficiaries. Bottom line, however, in the most ideal scenario, the ultimate measure of an intervention program is its ability or its capacity to be mainstreamed and adopted by the beneficiary community on their own. We have a great sense of fulfillment, for example, that the GILAS project, which is actually a collaboration among many corporations in the Philippines, which started out as a multi-sectoral collaboration headed by AFI in 2005, and after providing internet connection to 3,400 schools, or almost 50% of the public high schools in the country, will soon be turned over to the Department of Education to carry on the initiative on its own. That, in my